Welcome to the Childcare Director's Chair, the podcast for bold educators who are ready to lead, grow, and shake things up in early childhood education. Whether you are a teacher eyeing that lead role, a lead stepping into leadership, or a center owner dreaming big, this is your space to grow with purpose and leave your mark. Hosted by heart-centered leadership coach Erica Sacoccio, each episode brings you real talk, actionable tools, and a contagious laugh or two, all designed to help you step into your next level with confidence. So pour your coffee, pop in those earbuds, and take your seat, because your leadership journey starts right now in the Childcare Director's Chair.
Can you believe we've made it? Here it is, the week of the conference. I can't even believe we're here, but here we are. Before we start today's episode, I want to just take a moment and say a big thank you to our conference sponsors at Family. They were one of the first sponsors this year to jump on board and truly believe in the work that we're doing here. And not only did they jump on board, they signed up to be the lunch sponsors for Thursday, and they connected me with other sponsors who they've worked with, and that made such a huge difference in bringing the event together. This is such an amazing company, and for that reason, they are the exclusive parent communication platform at the Early Education Conference. If you are a childcare owner or director coming to the conference this weekend, make sure you stop by and see them in the Discovery deck. Give them a couple minutes of your time. It's worth it. They might just save you from headaches, juggling multiple platforms, or dealing with unresponsive chatbots. You know what I mean if you have I won't say the company, but if you've been dealing with spooling, been dealing with chatbots, can't get a real person when you need support and you're trying to help your families, it might be time to look somewhere else. So to learn more about Family, check the link below and stay tuned to hear a little bit more about them at the end of today's episode. Now, with further ado, welcome back to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Today's episode is one that might be one of those conversations that make you feel a little uncomfortable, which I think we do a lot here on the show. But it's also one of the most important ones that we can have as leaders. And we're talking about this. Are you the kind of boss that your staff feel safe with? Or are you the kind that they feel like they have to recover from? Now, wait a second. You know, I'm gonna give a shout out here to Ruth. Ruth is a teacher who's part of our Trailblazer program. And she said, Miss Erica, some of these episodes might make directors mad. And I certainly am not here to make anybody mad. I'm really here just to be helpful. I don't think I know everything. I don't think my way is the only way. But there is one thing I do know. Early childhood education and running childcare centers is a people business. And you have to understand people. And the more that you learn about communication, the more you understand about how people operate and how people need different things and what they need from you, the better director you'll be. I do know that. So in early education, we spend a lot of time talking about trauma-informed care for children. As we should. I have 2 grandchildren, and they both came from the foster care system. So yes, trauma is real. I also have a son who's adopted. Again, a lot of trauma. I've also experienced trauma in my life, and I think we all know somebody who has. But what we don't talk about enough is our staff. Many of our staff are walking into centers carrying workplace experiences from past jobs that weren't healthy. Maybe they had a director who constantly criticized them. Maybe they were micromanaged. Maybe they never felt heard. Whether we realize it or not, our leadership can either help them heal from that or quietly reinforce it. So let's talk about what is a bad boss. When you think bad boss, you think of the movies like The Devil Wears Prada, right? We tend to picture someone who's loud, aggressive, or openly disrespectful. But reality, it's often much more subtle than that. A bad boss can look like being inconsistent, or only communicating when something is wrong, or avoiding those conversations until they build up and then the smoke is coming off the top of your head like they see in cartoons. Creating an environment where staff feel watched instead of being supported is also another way to give folks trauma. And at its core, it comes down to this. A bad boss is a leader whose presence creates more anxiety than trust. Now, that doesn't make someone a bad person, but it does mean that there are patterns that are worth reflecting on. So let's do a quick self check. Ask yourself, when I walk into a classroom, do people feel relaxed or do they tense up? Or do staff come to me with problems or do they avoid me? Or is most of my communication corrective or is it balanced? And here's a big one. Do my staff feel like they're walking on eggshells around me? Because if they are, that's not just about them. That's about the environment and the leadership that it shapes. Now, I'm going to share a story. I'm going to call it walking on eggshells because this is a true story. I'm not going to use any names, but it might be one that sounds familiar to you. I have a teacher who runs our pre-K program. She is an incredible educator, the kind of teacher who brings learning to life, not just by following curriculum, by really living in it in the classroom. In fact, she was just nominated for an award this weekend at the conference, and it's well deserved. Not sure if she's going to win or not, but she made it in the top 5 nominees out of all the teacher ballots that we got. And here's the thing that stood out to me. For the first 3 years of working for us, she walked on eggshells. And I don't mean occasionally, you could see it. Every time I walked into her classroom, her whole body would shift. That look of what's wrong? What did I miss? But most of the time, nothing was wrong. I was coming in because I really enjoyed being in the classrooms. And I like seeing teaching happening in real life, not just on paper, especially since I helped develop parts of the curriculum. And there was something powerful about seeing it come to life, and she did it so beautifully. But her reaction wasn't about me in the moment. It came from somewhere else. It came from her past experiences, from leadership that likely made her feel like being noticed meant something was wrong. And even now, after growth, after trust has been built, there are still moments. If I ask her to come chat with me in the office, her first response is, "What's wrong?" Not, "Sure," or "What do you need?" but "What's wrong?" If your staff feel like they are being called into the principal's office instead of being invited into a conversation with a colleague, that feeling usually comes from somewhere. From environments where communication felt negative, where leadership felt intimidating, and being called in meant something bad. So even when your intention is positive, their body remembers something else. And that's hard. And sometimes I joke around and I say, "Hey, when you come to my office and you're worried about what's wrong," I say, "I've never yelled at you once in my life. I've never had you leave this office where we both didn't feel good about the conversation." And she always apologized. I said, "You don't need to apologize. I just want you to be self-aware that you're holding some things in." And she said, "I am. I definitely am." In the last place I worked, it always felt negative when we left the office. And so, we talk about it and we're both aware. I'm aware that that's a trigger for her, and she's aware that I'm not her old boss. So it's really important to just have those conversations. So let's talk about 5 common habits that you might be doing to create that tension and not even realizing it. First of all, only communicating when something's wrong. If staff only hear from you when there's a problem, they are being associated with you and stress. You're putting those 2 things together. They think, "What did I do wrong?" Over time, that creates anxiety, even when there's nothing wrong. So make positive feedback part of your daily routine. Like, be specific. Like, "I noticed how engaged your group was, and that was intentional." And your goal is really just to create presence, and that your presence doesn't equal pressure. It could just be presence. The second thing I want to bring up is being predictable. When you're unpredictable, especially with your moods or your decisions change constantly, staff can feel unstable. And that second guessing everything happens. And so you want to help people shift their minds. Be consistent. And when things have to change, explain why. And I know some of you have a hard time with that. "Well, I'm the boss. Why do I have to explain it?" Because it helps people understand. And when they understand, you're going to get a lot more buy-in. And then also your staff will know what to expect from you. Now, I know you want everything to go right in your school, as you should, right? But that's why you created systems. That's why you have directors in place or lead teachers in place, right? Micromanaging instead of trusting. Micromanaging sends one message, and it's, I don't trust you. And when people feel like that, they pull back, and you're not going to get the best from them. Set your clear expectations, absolutely. Set your standards, absolutely. Train them well, absolutely. Then step back and trust your team. Your goal is to really make sure that your staff feel empowered and not watched. Now, this one is a fun one, avoiding hard conversations and then letting it all out. When one small issue is not addressed, they build up, they fester into a big, ugly mess. And when they finally come out, it feels overwhelming and unfair. So address things early, keep it calm, and keep it ongoing so that there are no surprises for your staff, just steady communication. Again, that will start to balance out. Now, something that we might do, especially those of us who talk a lot, like me, guilty as charged, but not listening and only directing. If staff don't feel heard, they stop speaking up and then they just nod their head. And then you're scratching your head saying, why didn't you tell me you didn't understand? Well, the first 15 times I did, you ignored me, so I stopped saying it. And when that happens, you lose insight, connection, and trust. Now, I have to tell you, that was a really hard one for me because the way my brain is wired, and it's not an excuse, but the way my brain is wired, it's always on problem-solving mode. And when someone's talking, I am listening, but my brain is already going to how am I going to fix this problem for them? That is early on leadership. When you're first starting out, obviously you grow and you get better at it. So now it's more of I'm listening and then I help them find the solution, but usually they find the solution. And it's more like, what do you think we should do about that? So ask for their input, pause, listen, reflect back. And if you do interrupt, just apologize. And I've had to do that a lot in the last few years, especially with my sister, because we get so excited when we get to actually work together. And she might be talking and saying something, and my brain is going 1,000 miles an hour. My mouth is opening, and she always goes, "Oh, you don't listen." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I am listening, but my mouth is responding." So just be aware if you're that kind of person. I am. I'm very hyperactive. If you haven't figured that out by now. But I do always try to go back. I do always try to understand. I may say, hey, is this what you're trying to communicate with me? I want to make sure I fully understand. So pause, listen, reflect back. Staff feel like they're part of a team, not just managed by one. And the bigger truth, you've probably heard this before. People don't leave because of the kids. They don't leave because of the families. And they don't always leave because of the pay. They leave because of management. And that's a hard truth. But it's also an empowering one because leadership has the ability to change that. So in reflection, being a great director doesn't mean being perfect. It just means being aware. It means being willing to reflect and ask, do my actions create safety or stress? Because your leadership doesn't just run a center. It shapes the emotional experiences of every staff member in it. So this week, try one small shift. Give one piece of meaningful, positive feedback each day. Check in with the staff member just to listen or reflect on one habit you want to improve. Because the small shifts in leadership create big changes in culture. And before we wrap up, one more thank you to our sponsors at Family. If you're joining us at the conference this weekend, please stop by and connect with them. They're in the Discovery deck. And if you want to learn more about how they can support your program, check the link below. And thanks for being part of the conversation. And I'll see you next time on the Childcare Director's Chair podcast.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Childcare Director's Chair, where we believe leaders aren't born, they're grown. If something sparked for you today, share it, shout it out, or pass it along to the next bold changemaker in childcare. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with Erica Sakosio for more real talk leadership tools and a whole lot of inspiration. Until next time, lead with heart, grow with fire, and always remember, the chair is yours. Now own it.